In today's musical landscape, chords form the backbone for countless songs and musical works. For example, even though I just played 4 simple chords, it probably reminded you of dozens of songs. There are only so many chord progressions that hit our ears with such satisfaction. So how have so many composers created so much music with relatively so few chords? In one word, lines. Imagine being able to transform any chord progression into captivating musical lines. The creative possibilities are endless, and there's a huge advantage to doing this. But before we get that, we need a progression. I'm going to build a progression that has familiar elements, but also veers off a little bit towards left field, just for interest. Right now, I'm not going to worry about meter or rhythm or anything. I'm just going to write down the actual progression itself. I think I'm going to go to an A minor chord in an inversion, so it's not super strong. And here I think we'll veer off a little bit, just for fun. We're going to go to D flat major and just do a little walk up. G major with the suspension. And I wonder what happens if I just walk right up to A. That works for now. Okay, it's kind of morose, a little darker than I would have expected. So it centers around A, it plays with some of the surrounding keys that you would expect, and then it veers off when you least expect it to this D flat, and then it even goes into a cadential figure. Did I do C minor? Where it feels like it's gonna do, and maybe resolve in C major. But in this case, after we don't resolve the suspension in this chord progression, we just hold it and let it walk up right into A minor. And right there, the chord progression could start over again. So a quick playthrough of the chord progression so you know what we're working with. We have an A minor, which goes to C major, which goes to an E minor, which goes to an F major in first inversion. That's pretty surprising. Okay, and then we go to C major, also in, well, this in second inversion. And then we have an A minor in first inversion. And then an E major setting up. But instead of going back to A, we go on to D flat major, to C minor, to G7, or G, I should say, with the suspension, back to A. So a little familiarity and a little varying off, just like I promised. With this progression set, let's bring on the transformation. A quick aside, I'm using the word transformation, which really feels magical, but in reality, all we're doing is changing the plane that we're working with. Chords exist as vertical structures, while lines are horizontal structures. Our transformation involves moving the harmony from vertical to horizontal. If you want to hear some stunning examples of horizontal music, check out Gesualdo, Palestrina, or Bach. Bach in particular seems to think in progressions of chords, but lets them materialize horizontally. The first thing I'm going to do to start transforming this progression is I'm going to work with a bass line. I'm going to put things in a 4/4 just to keep it simple. I'll keep that as a whole note for the C major. Jumps down to 6th. Well, that would be interesting. I'll keep that F major chord also as a whole note. So we're up here in this F major. Now I know we're going to this G, which is part of a C major triad, an A minor chord after that. So let's add, create some more rhythmic interest to taking this up to the C, which is part of an A minor. Again, I'm going to add just a tiny bit of rhythmic interest. That A flat, which takes us back down to the C minor. Just playing around with it, see if I can make it more interesting. I'll do that. I'm gonna have it go up to a D flat, that this is no longer a dotted quarter note, and have that tie over D flat, C, G. Boy, I'm being very inconsistent with my beaming, I apologize. Which sets us up in this C minor. Oh, interesting. We're gonna elongate this bar right here to make it 2 times as long. So that way we can do a G, G sharp, or an A flat. We'll see how we spell it up, which really leads us to back to this A minor. All right, so there we have our bass line. Rather than doing the treble voice next, I'm actually going to do one of the inner voices. And then I'll just sit on the F down here. Now we're arriving to our C major chord. It's gonna have that walk up a scale. So we're going from this F, it's gonna hold over. So that's gonna sound like from here, 1. Which will have a nice answer in the bass. We're about to go to our A minor inversion. Help spell out the A minor there. And I'll walk down to arrive at the E major. Now here comes that surprise chord. I'm gonna leave this G sharp there. It's a hold over because that'll turn into the A flat. I'm going to leave that as written as a G sharp. We know that's tied over. And now we're arriving at our suspension. Which we were gonna elongate. So we're gonna have this hold on an F, and then resolve down to the E. So resolves down. And that's one of our inner voices written out as a line. We're going to dive into this treble voice knowing that this is really going to become the melody. I made a quick change to our first bar in the inner voice 1 because I realized it had some parallel motion that honestly I just didn't like. Other than that, it's exactly as we wrote it out just a minute ago. Well, one thing we already know is that between the A minor and the C major that the E can carry over, so I'm going to do just a long E. So we have E, rest E, D, C. And we're going back to the C major. Circling around here with the A minor. Hold on to that C as a suspension. Resolve it to the B. So we have this suspension. Resolves down. Now we know we're going to this D flat surprise. See, if I don't put the D flat in the bass here we have just the F and the A flat holding over. So if I go on the C, it sounds actually like an F minor chord when actually we're trying to make it sound like a D flat. We'll just let it slowly unveil that this is actually a D flat. That D flat goes to a C minor. So we've outlined, again, what could be an A flat. And now we're about to go into what sounds like our suspension. Oh, that's cool. So if I hold this, do the same pattern 3 times in a row, C natural to D flat under this first, the suspension, which is the same as this chord here. And I repeat the same figure with the walking up bass line, which finally takes us to, with the same C, just an A minor. And that A minor then sounds like a surprise. And that's so cool. We start at A minor, we leave it just a little bit enough to make our ears forget that we're there, and we arrive back at A minor even though it feels like a surprise chord now. The last step in this transformation is I'm gonna add a second inner voice that just helps flush out some of the chords. To keep things simple, I'm gonna just put an easygoing, ongoing 8th note run. Sorry, I'm not even gonna beam them because I know that they're gonna be 8th notes. So we're in this area of A minor. Even though we're gonna move to C, that same run of 8ths is gonna work. We go to an E minor right here, right now. It's gonna create a lot of harmonic interest. So double that B flat in the bass line, which takes us to this F major. So you outline the F major right there. I'm going to change these 4 notes to actually outline F major arpeggio. And then we're outlining C major. Effectively double the suspension here. And then we can arrive on this D flat. When we land on this downbeat, it's gonna sound this chord, but because this D flat's going down, we're gonna keep that ambiguity. Still sounds like it's maybe sitting in an F minor, even though we know it's in a D flat, which is gonna give way to maybe I'll keep that D flat for color. So this line and these 2 bars are exactly the same. And then we finally get to this held over suspension. Oh, cool. So our first one's gonna actually outline these notes up here in that first part of the suspension. So this is a really simple part of the suspension. And then we're gonna move up to, get this really neat chord. And then we arrive at, okay, we have all 4 lines written out. I'm gonna go ahead and engrave it, and then I'm gonna record it so we can do an A-B comparison of the 2 versions and see how they hit us. Version 1, of course, is gonna be our piece as a simple chord progression, and version 2 is gonna be that same progression as written out musical lines. Version 1 is our vertical, and version 2 is our horizontal. Let's get this engraved and recorded. That difference truly is magical. Same exact harmonic content, yet completely different listening experience. Even still, this astounding difference between the two versions, it's not the huge advantage I was talking about at the top of this video. If I were to write a song, track, or piece of music using our progression, any other piece that I would write in a similar manner using that same progression would sound basically the same. Why? Because the vertical chord progression is the connective fabric of that work. The essence of the track is built upon the actual chords and their verticality, leaving only a handful of other qualities to bring out uniqueness. Lyrics, melody, beat, ambient sounds. And don't get me wrong, you can do a lot with that. But if we want the fabric of the track to be the unique feature of the song, the horizontal unfolding of the progression offers limitless possibilities. Let me prove that. I'm gonna play 3 short tracks that I wrote using the exact same progression that we came up with for this video. The idea is that even with the exact same progression, each track has its own distinct essence. The first one is minimalistic in nature. The second one is pointillistic in nature. There's not a lot there. The last one is incredibly ethereal, spread out with different cross rhythms and different tonality to really push the progression into colorful areas. Let's give them a listen. I often wonder how much creative magic we miss out on by relying on chord progressions solely as vertical units. Of course, stacked tones or chords have their place and can be incredibly effective. But when I think about the music that moves me the most, it's often woven together by lines that connect and intersect, contrast one another, cross over each other, and offer a familiar, almost ambiguity. I think this ambiguity comes from hinting at a harmonic structure that supports the main material, allowing us to hear the same material in different ways depending on how it's hitting our ear in the moment. In contrast, vertical pillars can set tonality as immovable, which can feel secondary, merely supporting the main material, which is in that case the real essence of the music. While this can be effective, the total integration of every aspect through horizontal lines is, in my experience as a player, listener, and writer, truly unparalleled. Thanks so much for joining me on this musical adventure. If you like the contents of the video, throw the channel a subscription. It's always appreciated. If you have any thoughts or questions about the content of this video, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Maybe you feel super confident about your progression writing, but want to up the game of your melody writing. If so, stick around and keep watching this next video. Wow, it's amazing to think that we arrived at this long melody that goes through different tonalities and rhythms and has a motive. We arrived there from just starting with simple component ideas. Crafting a captivating